The GTX 460 was the budget king in 2010. How does it hold up 11 years later? Today we have a relic of gaming past, the GTX 460. It had a launch price of $199 USD, although I acquired this relic of a gaming card for $15 USD on eBay. The 400 series represented a major step forward for Nvidia, as they finally replaced the ancient Tesla architecture that was still in the 65nm process. They had been using this architecture since 2006, and finally in 2010 they introduced a brand new architecture called Fermi, and it was on the 40nm process. This series of GPUs really set the stage for GPUs as we know them today, especially in terms of branding. The 400 series is also the last time we saw a GTS branded card. Now on to the specs of this card. The GTX 460 features 1GB of GDDR5 with a memory clock of 900 MHz for a mere 3.6 GB effective speed. This card also featured 336 CUDA cores clocked at 675 MHz. Although this EVGA model we have here today features a 763 MHz core clock and a blower style cooler. This is the first blower style cooler I've ever laid my hands on, so let's find out how it handles this notoriously hot running Fermi card. So jumping right into thermals, compared to modern cards, this Fermi GTX 460 produces nuclear levels of heat. It starts off standard, more or less, with 32 Celsius at idle, but then, as we enter gaming, we hit a scorching 78 Celsius, which even compared to a fairly hot GTX 780 that we looked at in a previous video, it is 6 degrees hotter than that, which is pretty significant. And under synthetic load, it hits 88 Celsius, which is crazy levels of spicy. Now that we've confirmed that this Fermi card is definitely a spicy meatball, let's take a look over at the gaming performance. Today, we target low to medium settings at 1080p, which could be just out of reach for this aging card, yet let's find out. First up, we have the competitive esports titles, and find ourselves running at 1080p low settings in Valorant. This is a game I don't play often, but when I do, it's for benchmarks. As we can see, this game is super well optimized and not horribly demanding. We have a more than playable 190 FPS average with dips into around the 100 FPS range, yet a very strong start for an 11-year-old GPU. Next up, we dive into Counter-Strike Global Offensive, a game a little less optimized, running an ancient source engine, yet we have averages of 120 FPS, but as always we run into the dreaded FPS crippler, a smoke grenade, and find ourselves all the way down into the 20 FPS range, which is super unfortunate. I really wish there was a way to have much less crippling smokes. Next up, we dive right into Rocket League and get an absolutely smashing 103 FPS average with undetectable drops into the low 90 FPS range, which is more than enough for driving home a couple goals in car soccer. Now we drop into Fortnite. Fortnite is a game I don't play except when benchmarking, but I'm now on a 3-game win streak for solos. I was clearly able to play well with 110 FPS average and mere drops down into the 60 FPS range, but more than enough FPS for this game. Next up, we go into GTA 5, which is always a good time, and this aging GPU still allows us to have a great time. Even though we're running a little over its 1GB VRAM limit, we pumped out 115 FPS average on normal settings with drops into the 60 FPS range, another surprising result. Next up, we jump into Dirt Rally 2.0. Still powering on, we drop down to low settings and just managed to put up 60 FPS with dips into the 40 FPS range, but it was still enough to finish my race without blowing a tire, which is surprising. And last but not least, we sail into Valheim and finally are defeated by this early access title, which is to be expected because this game isn't a finished product and is not super well optimized, especially for how the game looks. Now that we've powered through the rest of our benchmarks, let's go ahead and just talk about these results. I am honestly super surprised how well this card did, especially for only having 1GB of VRAM. It traded blows in all the tests with the Radeon HD 6870 3GB that we tested in a previous video, which in hindsight makes sense because these cards were both launched in the exact same year. I really wouldn't seek one of these out. But with the current GPU shortage, if you don't have a GPU and find this one for like 20 bucks, then this card would be okay as a display output essentially. And you could use a game streaming service like Google Stadia until you can get your hands on something much better. I hope you guys enjoyed this look back. I'm BHATech Hunter, and have a good day. Today's video was brought to you by us. BHATechStore.com is now live. Make sure to check it out in the description down below. The latest tech reviews and now the latest merch designs. BHATechStore.com.